All right, welcome back to the digital desk for another Sports Spotlight episode. In not the middle of football season, but right at the beginning, we're talking Lions today. Sports Director Alex Eisman, as always, joined by my buddy reporter DeShawn Johnson. We got a special guest today, host of Not the Same Old Lions podcast, Matt Soltysiak. We're talking all things Lions football. So thank you so much for joining us here. Super excited to talk to a fellow Syracuse alum, which I found out just a couple minutes ago. That always gets me excited. Shout out Newhouse. But to get things started, can you just tell me a little bit about how you got this podcast started and just the progression of getting it to where it is today now?
Yeah, well, the podcast started, or it got sparked by a conversation by my best friend, who happens to be a Minnesota Vikings fan. Fortunately, Vikings, not Packers or Bears, right? So kind of that middle happy ground. But through that conversation, it just kind of sparked the idea of doing this again. And I say again because I used to work in the industry. As you mentioned, I went to Syracuse, got a master's degree in broadcast journalism, and I was lucky enough to get a job in my home state here in Michigan right from the get-go. And I became a weekend sports anchor for the NBC affiliate in Traverse City, WPBN. And so I got to cover the Lions, and that was a lot of fun. I loved it. And careers change. Things happen, things change in life. But as I said, passions don't die, right? The passion lives on. And time had gone by, technology had changed, but the passion was still there. So that technology changing allows you to do things like a podcast, and the growth of podcasts over that time period as well evolved into what it is today. So through that conversation with him, I wanted to do the podcast, and he was like, no, not us, you. And so then that kind of set me out to figure out, what am I doing? And that's the thing. If you've not done one, you don't really know what you're doing. And I made a lot of mistakes along the way, but you kind of learn from those mistakes. You move forward, you contact people who know a little something here and there. You find people that can be guests on your show. And the evolution is I started with audio only because I wanted it to be quality. And so you wanted to kind of grow, as you need to or as you can, but not too fast. And so for, I think, about 2 years, I was audio only with this podcast, focusing on the sound. Because, as you guys know, if the sound's bad, nothing else really matters. And so I was like, we got to get this out. I went through multiple editing programs before I finally settled on the one that was going to work the best. And there's still hiccups with that one. As you guys know, technology is great when it works, but when it fails, well, it can add that stress level pretty high. But this past spring, I did start a video version of the podcast, got some help with someone making some graphics for me. I've got 2 guys that are awesome regular guests on the show. One's a former Michigan high school football coach, Jerry Angers. Another one is the Traverse City Record Eagles sports writer, the senior sports reader, James Cook. And they both are Lions fans, and they bring in a lot of experience and expertise as well that helps just really round out the show.
Matthew, something just hearing you talk about the evolution of your podcast, I'm sure, if you're a Michigan homegrown, like you talked about, really the 3 of us are, then you kind of maybe understand where the background of this. But a question about your podcast: where does the name Not the Same Old Lions podcast really come from?
Yeah, so I'm going to be the full transparency. That they say when you name a podcast, they say it should be short and memorable, right? Those are like the things that the research I did. Obviously, my podcast name is not short, but it is very memorable, I think. And, I thought about a lot of different things, and I was like, well, you don't really need to have it geographical or anything like that. It doesn't really do anything. But it was after a Lions loss. Taylor Decker said, it's not the same old Lions. We're not the same old Lions. And I was like, that's got a ring to it. And again, growing up in Michigan, I saw a few highs and lots of lows from the Lions. But I never, ever had the attitude, oh, it's the same old Lions. Because, I covered every game of that 0-16 season from the sports desk, you guys. And call me crazy, I thought we were going to at least win 1 or 2 of those games. Every week I remember getting close and whatnot. So I never had the attitude of same old Lions. But as I said to some other people recently, there's a couple cool things that ring true with the name Not the Same Old Lions. Well, the first 3 letters of my last name are SOL. So I like that little connection. But if you put the word podcast in there, Not the Same Old Lions podcast, I was like, Well, maybe it's got a double meaning to it where maybe there's something about our podcast that will catch on to people that they'll find unique or cool, or just something that speaks to them that they will enjoy it and listen to. So it's got a couple different meanings to it, but by no means is it a slight at the team or the franchise in any way, because it's one that I have followed, regularly since the late 80s.
Absolutely. No, I'm sure everyone knows that's from around here. I mean, it's some of it, like you mentioned, there's been some lows, but the true diehards, the true really fans of the team have stuck with it all the way through and through. So.
Absolutely. And I was going to say, I think it takes Michigan natives to like know what SOL means. Like if you hear someone say SOL, they're saying same old lines, but like you said, like the podcast means it isn't. And despite what people might have been saying after week 1, they came back now against the Bears on Sunday and just put on one of the most complete performances that I can remember in the Dan Campbell era. Matthew, can you just tell me a little bit, what were some of the biggest things that stuck out to you about Sunday's game?
Well, I will say, first off, it was awesome being at the game, the home opener, and getting the response you got from the Lions offense in that game. I think it's important. I'm going to take the Dan Campbell approach, is you don't want to overreact, get too high, too low. Everybody overreacted after week 1, like 98% of national media overreacted after that loss. Was I concerned after that loss? Oh, for sure. There were some questions and whatnot. When you see 3 offensive linemen running one way and 2 going another way, you're like, okay. And we've got new guys in new positions. But to put 52 points up on the Chicago Bears, we're not talking Tennessee Titans and Jacksonville Jaguars from last year. No offense to those teams, but this is the Chicago Bears, who have I think I heard only allowed this like 3 times in the Super Bowl era, is what I thought I read somewhere, against a team where, people had high expectations coming into this season. They started 4-2 last year before everything fell apart. They obviously got Ben Johnson as their head coach. They brought in some more talent. And I think the most important thing out of this Bears game is it reminded us that we have an offense. It reminded the fans. It didn't remind the Lions. They knew what they had. But it reminded us that, hey, if the offense is working, we can compete in any game. That first game against the Packers, the offense wasn't working, and so you could just feel it, like everything was extra difficult to accomplish. And so, you can overcome 21, 28 points if you can score 42. But you can't overcome 17 if you can't score 14.
Absolutely. And another thing I was going to say is I remember last week in one of Dan Campbell's press conferences, he said, we have to and we will win this game. So, I mean, being able to manifest that and go out and say it, like, we are going to win this game, and putting on the performance they did, I was super impressed with that as well. I know John Morton's a guy who was kind of under fire last week after putting up kind of a stinker in the Packers game, but the game plan he came up with, I thought, was phenomenal as well. DeShawn, I guess, what were some of your biggest takeaways here?
I think the biggest thing that I was kind of looking at, and this kind of plays into, some of the the storylines that were going against Johnny Morton following week 1, is that, I thought this was a big spotlight game for Jared Goff. You kind of take maybe the last couple of games in perspective. Obviously, the last end of last year, NFC Championship game against the Commanders, he doesn't have the greatest look, a couple picks in that game. And then week 1, obviously the offense as a whole just doesn't look super in tune. And then the narrative comes out of Jared Goff without Sean McVay and Jared Goff without Ben Johnson, and it becomes, this a storyline that comes out for him. And, you got to take all that coming into week 2. And then you put up a 50 ball. I do truly think that, this is it was a big breakout game for Jared. Obviously he's a pro, and we've been able to see that, multiple times. This is nowhere near the first time Jared Goff has had a 50-point game. So, I think to be able to see, him kind of break through that wall that's kind of put up early for him, and that opens up this entire offense. When he's in tune, everyone opens up. You see the guys getting involved. Amon-Ra St. Brown, multiple touchdowns. Jameson. Everyone gets involved, and it all starts with the quarterback position. So I thought that was a really big spotlight game for Jared Goff, and I really thought he not only improved from week 1, but he really got, a great start for this Lions team coming out of week 2.
Absolutely. And Matthew, I'm actually interested to hear your take on this as well. Like you said, can't get too high, can't get too low. There's still some things that needed to be cleaned up. And one thing that stuck out to me that maybe the box score watchers wouldn't have known is the Lions. So the Lions had 4 sacks in this game, but I believe they all came in the second half. The first half, there wasn't a whole lot of pressure on the defense that the defensive line was creating, rather. I guess how do you feel about that unit as a whole for the rest of the season after kind of they did well when it was out of reach, but when the game was still close, they weren't necessarily getting home?
Well, first I have to throw something back to DeShawn real quick and say that narrative that you were talking about, how good Jared Goff is or is not without those guys. Somebody else on social media turned it around and said, how good is Ben Johnson without Jared Goff? And they said, it's got to work both directions, right, guys? And so, yeah, I hear you. The narrative, I mean, that narrative of Jared Goff not winning games in cold weather, I go, how about that game in Lambeau Field on 4th down when he threw a pass to win the football game? Like, right. Don't tell me Jared Goff's not good in cold weather. So, yeah, great points there, DeShawn. But, Alex, as far as the defense, you're right. They didn't get any sacks in the first half. And I think it goes back to what we've called crush the can, which is, Caleb Williams is elusive. And if you push too far upfield, you leave a lot of green out there to run to. And Caleb Williams had 5 carries for 27 yards, a long of 10 yards. And I think the defense did what the coaches wanted them to do, which was bring the pocket in, don't give him room to run outside. And when he did get flushed outside by Hutchinson, he forced an interception. So I think it's calculated. And I'm sure we'll talk about the Ravens game here at some point, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's a similar approach against Baltimore. Now, if you have a traditional pocket passer who doesn't scramble very much, well, then I could see them going a little bit more of, pushing upfield on that and doing the traditional pass rush. But you ask, how does the defense look overall for the rest of the season? It's too early to tell. I think everybody's concerned. About Marcus Davenport right now, number one, right? He got that sack, and I'm like, wait a minute, he's not getting up. What's going on? And, they're still waiting on that second opinion right now. So there's that question. But Al-Qadim Muhammad played some solid minutes and did a really good job. And the Lions have made some other transactions recently to pick up some guys that, they're not on the active or they're not on the game day roster yet, but they're probably getting up to speed, learning the scheme. There could be some help coming there. And Josh Paschal and Aleem McNeil are expected back this year, as is Rodrigo. So I think those guys are all going to play a role and be a help, especially, if Aleem McNeil comes back and is not even, if he's like 90% of what he was last year, because it's obviously going to take him some games to get up to speed, that bodes well for the defense. So I think it's still too early to know everything. They looked decent, and the Bears would not have scored in the entire second half of that game if it wasn't for that 15-yard penalty. So, even though it was a close game, and they didn't give up any points in the third quarter. So the defense did good, but again, I don't want to overreact. The defense didn't do that bad against Green Bay. If you look at the stats in that game and what they gave up, if Alex Anzalone gets that interception, or if the other interception goes back to the house, a lot of different things could have been different. So yeah, I'm still optimistic on it, but it's still a work in progress.
For sure. And another thing that I saw regarding the defense that I feel like more people kind of need to take your approach to is Terrion Arnold's play and being a second-year cornerback going up against the ones on the opposite team day in and day out. Cornerback arguably is the hardest position in football. He had a lot of penalties in his rookie year. And this year he's had some struggles. Obviously he got hurt in that Green Bay game. What's kind of your message to Lions fans who are maybe getting a little impatient with him so far?
Work in progress is he's going to go back to it. Because here's the other thing. The Lions' goal is to make the other team one-dimensional, which means they want to stop the run and force the pass. So if that's going to happen, there's going to be more passes, right? And when there's more passes, their odds will tell you more completions, and you'll be tested more often. And if teams are going to avoid DJ Reed because of how good he is, then Arnold's going to get more looks. I know he said there was a groin issue or whatnot in the first game, and he was a little banged up. And as Calvin Shepard said, if you're hurt, you're off the field. If you're on the field, you're playing type deal. So don't make any excuses. I'm not, I heard great things from the offseason about Terrion Arnold's growth. I'm not willing to give a full season report card after 2 games. But there were some big third downs that were given up against the Packers. There were a few really big plays when the Lions got him to third down, but then they gave up the 3rd and long. So that does need to steadily improve, and I think it will, because I do think they're going to try to stop the run. But you're going to be facing a very talented quarterback this week, and it wouldn't surprise me if they're going right after Terrion Arnold, or if not necessarily going after Terrion Arnold, but if Terrion Arnold's covering Zay Flowers, by default, he may get picked on because Zay Flowers has been quite active the first 2 weeks for the Ravens, and Lamar Jackson's a really, really good quarterback.
Matthew, something that I'm curious about, just to kind of switch us back to the offensive side. I know we'll get to Lamar here in a second. Another big thing that we kind of seen from the Lions that I think, was really just rejuvenating maybe for, people that, just obviously seen some of the low points of week 1 was, Sonic and Knuckles, David Montgomery, and Jahmyr Gibbs. I mean, both of them, you see both of them really getting back in action. Jahmyr ends up finishing the game with 12 carries for 94 yards. Montgomery, 11 carries, just under 60 yards and a touchdown as well. I mean, what did you really see from the both of them that maybe changed from week 1? Because I feel like, besides Jared Goff, they're a huge factor of opening up this offense, to spread it out the way that we like to do.
They are. And I think you saw about the same balance of carries from them. I think Gibbs started both games, which last year was the opposite. It was Montgomery starting the games. I don't think you're going to see a huge difference in their split this year for multiple reasons. One, David Montgomery is extremely talented. Yes, Jahmyr Gibbs is at a very unique level, but don't discount how good David Montgomery is. And so keep that in mind. And they want to keep both guys healthy, right? You don't want to overload either guy. So, and you didn't see Gibbs take too many catches this week, which was nice. What, like 10 catches for like 31 yards or something? So crazy stat. But yeah, so you saw them in a balanced approach. And I think at different times, you might see a different person playing. Everyone's like, oh, well, Dave Montgomery is the grinded up the middle of the field and Gibbs is the go outside guy. Gibbs, they both have very complementary pieces to each other. They both can do both things, even though one does one slightly better than the other. And even though Gibbs has the better speed, Montgomery did take that ball, was it 80 yards against the Chargers 2 years ago? It's funny. I still remember that play, and he's like, J-Mo's jogging next to him. He's like legit jogging, and I'm running as fast as I can. So they're very complimentary, and you saw the explosives a little bit by Gibbs. And the nice thing is, you get that hard running from Montgomery, and he's going to break the tackles. And so I just think they continue to complement. As far as the difference between week 1 and week 2, they weren't getting hit behind the line of scrimmage so much, which is a huge, huge compliment to the offensive line on figuring out a lot of those issues from week 1.
Yeah, to your point, I was going to say the improvement in the gelling collaboration of the offensive line, however you want to call it, from week 1 to week 2, was night and day, particularly on the interior. Obviously, you got pretty inexperienced guys at the guard spots. What impressed you with Tate Ratledge and Christian Mahogany, and even Graham Glasgow, who played a lot better in this game as well?
Well, the big thing is just everybody was on the same page. I guess that's it. Running backs were not getting hit behind the line of scrimmage other than maybe once, maybe twice at most. So that was big. But also, Jared Goff had time to throw the ball. And that was big because he's good. When he has time to throw the ball, he can, go check on 3-4 different reads. You know how accurate he can be and how good he is on his decision making. And so they did a great job of that. And the Chicago Bears defense, again, it's not I know there's some injuries there and stuff, but they had a quality defense last year. They had Dennis Allen in as their defensive coordinator, a highly respected guy. And so it all starts with the offensive line, though. None of those points happen if the offensive line's not doing their job. And they all seem to be on the same page. Now, they were at home, didn't have the crowd noise effect, but now you got 2 games under your belt, and I think a lot of things have been smoothed out, that they'll be better prepared going back on the road.
Matthew, before we kind of get into, looking into next week's matchup, one more thing I want to ask you that we've really got a chance to not see too much of, but what we have seen has been pretty big. Jared Goff's new connection, Isaac Tesla. Tell me, you told me about how exciting it was to kind of be there at the home opener. How exciting was it when not only is this guy making one-handed catches, but it's his second career catch. It's another huge one near the end zone. What's it been like just watching this guy?
Man, all the naysayers are gone on that draft pick, right? In the third round, I think everybody's like, well, he's only caught one pass in each game, but if they're going to look like that, maybe this, well, they were excited in the preseason when we saw him there, right? And, he doesn't just catch, he blocks, he plays special teams, he does all those things. He's got some height. And so that's where you saw him in the Green Bay game where they went to him there. And so it's really exciting because think about this. We haven't even talked about Amon-Ra St. Brown. We're 20 minutes in, and that guy is, I said in training camp that I thought he was going to be at a different level this year. But you've got Amon-Ra St. Brown already extended. You just extended Jamison Williams, and you have Isaac Tesla on a rookie contract. Those three receivers could become the best trio in football in the next year or two. And they're that good. They have the potential to be that good. And Tesla is looking like he is exactly what we presume Brad Holmes thought when he went and drafted him at that spot. So it's really exciting. And I think what excites me the most, DeShawn, is the fact that he catches the ball, right? Like, there's talented guys out there that just drop the ball. I don't care how wide open you get or how fast you are. If you can't catch the ball, none of that matters. And we haven't even seen this guy use his other hand to catch the ball. It's just one-handed. So it's incredible.
And I piggybacking off that again. I was talking in one of our shows the other night, and obviously the Tesla catches in the story. He's another West Michigan guy too, which I think is fantastic. But St. Brown, the 3 touchdowns, the connection that he has with Goff. I was saying last night or maybe the night before, find me a more sure-handed and reliable wide receiver in the NFL, and I don't think you have one.
Yeah, I was at the Miami Dolphins joint practice with the Lions, and I said afterwards, I don't know if it's possible that Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to go to a different level. I don't know how that's possible, but it looks like he's playing at a different level from last year. And you're like, how is that possible with as great as he did? And really, I've heard some other people say this, and I agree, is the connection Jared Goff and Amon-Ra St. Brown have, and it may have been Dan Campbell that said, I can't remember at this point, is really incredible because they kind of they know each other and they've got that connection. And so, like, if Goff knows what St. Brown is thinking, then that will help him put the ball where it needs to go. And those back shoulder throws are like that touchdown right after the Tesla thing. And they had 6 seconds, and people were like, what are they doing? I'm like, they got 6 seconds. That's one throw in the end zone. And St. Brown did what he does. I mean, he catches it, he gets the touchdown, and that sends them into halftime in a good spot.
For sure. I think that's we pretty much covered everything from that game. I mean, a lot of good things, a lot of great things, but it's a tough. I mean, it's one of the toughest, if not the toughest place playing football. Monday night, prime time against the Ravens, MVP in their quarterback. The Lions have historically had a hard time with guys like that, mobile QBs. We saw it with Josh Allen last year. We saw it the year before when they played in Baltimore and got whooped. I know this is general. We can dive into it a little more, but just some of your biggest keys to this game that the Lions need to check off if they want to be able to leave there with a win.
Well, I was at that game 2 years in Baltimore, and let me tell you, we did not see that coming. Nobody saw that coming. Even the person that I interviewed from Baltimore at the time did not see that coming. And so what's it going to take for the Lions to win this game? Well, they're going to have to play a really good game. No duh, right? The offensive line is going to have to give Jared Goff time to throw the ball. And they're going to have to establish their running game because the best defense against the Baltimore Ravens offense is to keep them off the field. That's going to be number one. They're going to want to have long, sustained drives. As far as on the defensive side goes, I think it comes back to what we were talking about with Caleb Williams, which is crushing the can a little bit. trying to put pressure on him without letting him escape. We saw him escape a lot 2 years ago. This is a different Lions team than 2 years ago. So I think that they've learned a lot from that game. And a few things just went real sideways in that game quick that just changed everything. Obviously, I think they're going to focus on stopping the run. We saw Cleveland do that, and that really helped things when they stopped the run there this past week. Well, it helped the running game, right? And that forced Lamar to pass them. That being said, when they were able to pass the ball, Lamar Jackson did a great job this week. So it's going to start like that. I kind of bounced around a little bit. There's a lot that's going to take place, but hopefully that kind of gives you a little insight.
For sure. And the other thing that I wanted to mention with that, because of, I guess, the volatility between week 1 and week 2. Week 1, Josh Jacobs was pretty held in check by the Lions' run defense. Last week, DeAndre Swift broke out some pretty explosive runs, and now they're running into one of the 5 best running backs in the NFL, in Derrick Henry. And the question, how do you contain Derrick Henry, is I don't know what the word is, but you can't contain Derrick Henry. How do you not let him completely break this game?
I think you look and see what the Cleveland Browns did last week, because that was their mission. That was their goal, was to stop Derrick Henry. And they effectively did that. But they forced Lamar to beat them, and Lamar did do that. So I guess they committed more people up front. And I do know that the Ravens' interior offensive line is still a work in progress. That said, we saw what Derrick Henry did in week 1. I think it was 160, 170 some yards and multiple touchdowns. So you're right. It's going to be what the Lions try and do, which is, I think, is going to be stop the run, get some linebackers up there, and force Lamar to pass. It's tough. This is maybe their toughest game on the schedule all year. It's definitely top 3 for sure, because the way the Ravens are playing, they're 2 points away from being undefeated at this point, and they're looking like one of the finalists for the AFC Championship game at this point, the way they're playing to me.
Matthew, this may be a little bit of like a niche, unique question, but I mean, you're going to have to hear me out on this one. Just going, to the way the Lions play, like thinking of maybe last week. And I've been hearing a lot of this, narrative. And Brian Branch even talked about it a little bit after the game of, just maybe some of the players' emotions towards Ben Johnson, him leaving and whatnot. I thought the biggest takeaway from that whole narrative is that the coaching staff did a great job of selling that to the players, this is a game that we have to win, whether they all respect him and they love him as a coach, but you got to sell to the players. You got to beat him here. We got to let them know that kind of thing. I think it's a big thing for the Lions, their grittiness. I don't know if you guys are aware of this. The Ravens are currently the last win the Lions have against the Ravens in this series history, 2005. So, I mean, you look at a 20-year streak, maybe that's something that, Campbell and the rest of the guys can kind of use as a motivation factor. Is that something you think is at all possible, just going into this week with just knowing how big of a game this is?
It's entirely possible. It is. The Ravens are a weird one, because we all remember what happened at Ford Field, and a bad call gives the opportunity for the kick. I didn't realize it at the time, but I saw the Lions play in Baltimore, and Barry Sanders was playing, and it was not a very memorable game. And then 8 months later, Barry retired. So I technically saw Barry in his final game in Baltimore. Did not know it at the time. And you're right. The narrative, the Bears game was a must win, because we know how difficult this Ravens is. You don't want to start 0-3.
Right.
They're Kansas City's 0-2 right now. But again, you don't want to start that way, because every loss makes the margin for error that much thinner. Ask Dan Campbell about the 1-6 season, because we finished 9-8, and nobody would have wanted to play us in the playoffs that year, but we didn't make the playoffs. So I think it wouldn't surprise me, because remember what they did, the back of the meeting room, they wrote on the board there, the last time we won a division championship, the last time we won a championship, the last time we won a playoff game. And I took a tour of Allen Park this summer, and they just used like athletic tape, put that right over it, and use marker to update it. It was awesome. So it wouldn't surprise me if they go into that a little bit. It's not a division game, and I already have my strong opinions that the NFL should not start the season with multiple division games because it's like college football. You're working off the roughs. You want both teams at their best. I know everyone's at equal footing, but you still want it to be different. But yeah, it'd be big to get this game. And here's the narrative's flipping back and forth. Right now, everyone's all on the Green Bay bandwagon. People remember Detroit exists only because we put 52 on the Bears. If we beat Baltimore, then it's suddenly, oh, wait a minute here. And if Baltimore wins, it's like, I think people are expecting Baltimore to win, so it wouldn't shock them. But I wouldn't rule the Lions out on this by any means. I not as bad as the week 1 game. And as I don't know if it was Dan Campbell or one of the players, it might have been Campbell, said, we left points out there against the Bears, and we actually have to play better if we're expecting to win next week.
Okay. 100%. 100%. I mean, this is, like you said, this is a team that's probably going to be in the AFC Championship. I think kind of an underrated theme of this game. Obviously, it's Lamar. Obviously, it's the Lions trying to kind of get that monkey off their back, just winning against Baltimore. But both of these safety duos on the Lions and the Ravens have to be each top 5 in the league. I mean, Kyle Hamilton, Marlon Humphrey. Kyle Hamilton is just a freak of nature. You can make the argument that he's the best safety in the league. Obviously, Lions fans are gonna go with Brian Branch. But how do those two? Marlon Humphrey's I don't want to disrespect him as well. He's also a Pro Bowler. He's a great player. How do they affect the game and how the Lions offense has to operate against Baltimore?
Well, I believe it was Kyle Hamilton that got the big contract extension, and so. Thank you for doing that before we could extend Brian Branch. But yeah, I mean, this Ravens team is that good. I think what you're going to try and do is what we hope they could do against Green Bay more, which is stretch the field. Now they tried. Green Bay operated that shell, but we couldn't run the ball well, so you didn't draw the safeties up. And I think people forget, you guys talked about the coordinator changes, but the players didn't really change. I mean, we know the offensive line did, and that's very important. And we had some injuries on the defensive side. But you have some of the best skill players in the game all on the same team. And we haven't seen much, or if any, 2-back personnel, 21 personnel. I'm still waiting to see Gibbs and Montgomery in the backfield split out at the same time. And we haven't seen that in the first 2 games. And maybe they just really dialed it down to basic levels for this week 2 after the way week 1 went. And we're like, okay, let's scale it back a little bit. But it would have been crazy to overreact after that first game. You put in all this work, you believe your process, and you know you've got the players back, and you know what they can do. It's not like you were, starting from scratch. So it's going to be establish the run and use the speed to your advantage and send those guys on the routes that they go on. I think that's going to be a twofold thing, which means play action pass. That's exactly how the Lions started the game against the Bears. I think the first 2 passes might have been play action. And that also will draw your safeties up a little bit. But they've got their work cut out for them. This defense is really good.
Sean, you got anything else on this game, or are we going big picture for the division now?
Yeah, I mean, one thing, I guess I'm just curious about, Matthew, just, I've been asking you a lot, maybe about, just the Lions offensive scheme in general, but, you talked about play action there. This is going to be a super quick one. Who do you think? We've seen obviously a lot from Ross so far. Are you thinking he's going to be our big breakout? As far as on the offensive side, do you think it's going to be to a running back? Is it Jameson? Who are you thinking is kind of going to be our star offensive player for the week coming into this? If we have one, if it goes the way we want things to, of course.
Well, J-Mo caught 2 passes for over 100 yards, and I loved his zigzag play. I mean, that was just so much fun to watch. And then the other one where he caught for the touchdown, he was wide open, and then I think Goff overthrew him on a ball, and that's kind of funny because J-Mo's got great speed, and people say Goff doesn't have a good arm. I don't know who the breakout star is going to be because I could tell you I don't think the Lions would know that answer. I think it could easily be St. Brown. It could be J-Mo. It could be Laporta. I mean, Brock Wright got heavily involved last week. Right. It could be Gibbs or Monty. I think it's going to depend on what Baltimore does, and we're going to look for the weakness. And if you're going to take one thing away, the Lions will just go to the other, right? That's the thing. They've got so many options. They're not just limited to option A or B. But we do know Jared Goff has to play a good game, and it's got to start with the offensive line, getting the run game going, giving Jared Goff protection, and then Goff making good decisions.
Absolutely. And like you said, Laporta wasn't super involved last week, but I thought, was one of the few bright spots in the Green Bay game. He made some big catches. So, yeah, I'd like to see him get the ball a little more, kind of be physical up on that Ravens defense. But as we look kind of big picture at the Lions schedule this year, one of the toughest in the league, it does get a little easier now with the Burrow injury in the Cincinnati game for sure. Kansas City maybe not as good as we all think, but it's still Pat Mahomes at the end of the day. And everyone is singing Green Bay's praises, rightfully so, right? The defense looks phenomenal. They dominated a Washington team that took the Lions out in the playoffs last year. In terms of, I guess, the playoff picture in the NFC and the division itself, where do the Lions kind of stand in terms of being able to really chase Green Bay, I think, and track them down the rest of the season?
Well, before the season started, I picked the Lions to win the division. I got Green Bay in second I had Minnesota maybe tied with them, but like in third, and then the Bears in last. I'm not changing that after 2 weeks. I know a lot of people, after the Micah Parsons trade before the season started, it was boom, catapulted up. Can't blame them for that. A little bit, maybe. I mean, back-to-back defending champs, and you're going to take them out because of that. I mean, don't get me wrong, Micah Parsons is extremely talented. I still don't like Jerry Jones for making that trade. It was a very unintelligent trade to make, and it made our division that much tougher. That said, yeah, I think most people are going to see the Lions behind the Packers for a bit because the 2-0 start for Green Bay, and they've got the head-to-head win against the Lions. They don't play again until Thanksgiving, so you have a lot of time for that narrative to go back and build up that rematch. Everybody in the NFC North does have a tough schedule, though. They all play the NFC East. Obviously, the Lions have the first-place schedule, and the Packers have the third-place schedule, so that does change things a little bit. But I still like the Lions to win the division, and it might be real tight. It might be a one-game thing like last year, and that Green Bay Lions Thanksgiving Day game will likely be extremely important in this, as will the rest of the divisional games, to try and get that tiebreaker. So I think it's going to be tough, but I still like the Lions in this. And in some ways, it might be not the worst thing that the spotlight's on the Packers and people are looking at them and not just anointing the Lions, because the Lions won't be hearing the press clippings, because almost all of last year, all we heard was how good the Lions were every other week. And it was deservedly so, because they were breaking records left and right, even with all those defensive injuries. But it just kind of creates a different situation.
For sure. And with the way Minnesota looks, rough game for J.J. McCarthy. He's injured and now out for a couple weeks. Is it fair to say that the Lions will probably need to win the rest of their division games if they want a shot at winning the division?
Well, if Green Bay does, then yes. I mean, wasn't it last year Green Bay went 1-5 against their division? I think they split with Chicago. They got swept by the Vikings and the Lions. Obviously, I don't see Green Bay doing that this year. They're going to win a lot more than 1 or 2 games in the division. But yeah, you took care of the first one with the Bears, so now you're 1-1 in the division. You're going to want to win that last game of the season in Soldier Field. And yeah, 5-1, 4-2 in the division is what it's going to probably take to win the division, I would think. But we know they have a lot of road games against non-divisional opponents that are extremely difficult, and those are going to have to go the right way as well. And Green Bay is going to have to lose a couple here and there. So it will not be easy, but anybody coming into this season thinking it would be was not doing the analyzation. But I don't think anybody was coming in thinking that when they saw the schedule. But yeah, so it won't be easy to win the division, but it's possible. I still like that chance. And even if you don't win the division, you can still get in the playoffs with the wild card spot.
Matthew, real quick, I just had one more quick question for you. I know you said you had the Lions before this, obviously before this 2 weeks of football we've seen, you had the Lions winning the division. What does your Super Bowl matchup look like? I have to ask you.
I don't know that I picked one. Actually, I know I didn't pick one. But, you know, if you look from the AFC side, let's start there. I mean, Buffalo and Baltimore, AFC Championship game. Again, why not, right? I mean, they played week one. It came down to what it came down to. And so, you know, and if either of those teams go to the Super Bowl, you know the fan bases are going to love that because they've been so close. NFC side, I mean, I want the Lions to get there.
Yeah.
You know, Philly's a defending champ. You got to beat them. We get to play them in the regular season. You know, the Rams, the NFC West is surprisingly strong because Arizona and San Fran started 2-0, but the Rams are really the team I like out of the West as long as Matthew Stafford stays healthy. But I want to see the Lions in the NFC Championship game with a chance to go to the Super Bowl. I was there in San Francisco, and that was the most incredible first half I've seen of football in probably my life because of the fact that we were so close. Not as good as a full game that I saw a couple weeks earlier when we beat the Rams in the wild card game. That was the greatest football game I've ever attended. But we know what the Lions are capable of. They have an extremely talented roster. But once you get into the postseason, anything can happen. And that's why even if you don't get in as a division winner, and even if you get as a wild card, anything can happen.
For sure. And I mean, we saw it, unfortunate for us, but we saw what happened last year as the 1 seed and coming off a bye week. So definitely agree with you on that. I think that Packers game on Thanksgiving might be the biggest game on the rest of the schedule for the Lions to win too. But I think that's all we got. Big one though, Monday night for sure. I feel like, and maybe you feel differently, Matthew, like, of course I want them to win. It's a tough place to win. I think they can win, but ultimately I just want to see a down to the wire 1-score game going into the fourth quarter, showing that they can hang with the best teams in the league this year. Maybe you disagree with me, and if you do, feel free to call me out.
No, I mean, you know, if they don't, then all you're going to hear is 2 years ago all over again, right? Mm-hmm. And so, and that's what's the great thing about this schedule, you guys. We are playing the best teams. We've got Baltimore. Yes, the Bengals lost Burrow. The Chiefs don't look the way they did. We've got to still play Tampa Bay. We're playing the Commanders, the Eagles. We're going to play the Packers, and we're going to go out and play the Rams on the road. So we're going to be tested. And as any of you know, the more you're tested in the regular season with high-level opponents, the better it bodes for the postseason. Obviously, it means you could have more losses, but I guess that just goes with the territory on it. Yeah, you want to see them compete. You want to, because that also plays into your psyche, right? Knowing that, hey, we're at that level. And yeah, compete, win, right? 1-0, one game a week. Take this game. It's going to be Monday night. It's going to be late. It's going to be everybody watching it. And it's going to take a really good game from the Lions. And I think the defense for the Lions is going to have to try and create a turnover or two in this game because the Ravens are that good. But I think the Lions can do it if the pieces come together.
All right, there we go. Monday night, going to be locked in. But I think that's all we got for you here, Matthew. Thank you so much for chopping it up with us, talking Lions football. We're 3 Michigan guys, so this is easy to talk about, easy to be excited about this team too, easy to be excited about the Bears game and being able to bounce back off that loss and give us some momentum going into Monday night. So Matthew, again, thank you so much.
Alex, DeShawn, thank you guys both for having me. It was a pleasure. Love to come back anytime.
Thank you, man. We appreciate it.
Oh, I'm sure we can make that work. I'm sure we can make that work.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Perfect.